focusing on farm to plant milk transport, and to share some of our experiences that we've had with clients in Ireland, in Europe, in the US, and even further afield. And we want to hopefully give you some food for thought on how we can turn milk transport from a cost function into a strategic part of the dairy production business. My name is Gary Gallagher. I'm the co-founder and CEO of OptaHaul. We are a technology software company, but for the last 5 years, we've been working in the dairy industry, and we've been working specifically in that part of the supply chain that moves milk from farm to factory for milk production. I also have on the call today, Colm Kelly, our director, who's looking dapper and putting me to shame. So thanks for joining today, Colm. So what we're going to cover today is we want to reiterate our perspective on why we think farm to plant milk transport is so important. We want to share with you some of the challenges we've discussed with our customers at home and abroad. We want to discuss some of the ways companies are meeting these challenges head on. We will then show you a quick overview of the OptaHaul solution. Again, OptaHaul focuses on reducing miles, reducing costs, and reducing vehicle GHG emissions in farm to plant milk transport. And then we'll have time for a summary and a close at the end. But before we go into the meat of the content, I just want to maybe explain to you why we have invested so much time and effort and resources into what some people might say a niche market, a small part of the agri market or even the dairy market, that is farm to plant milk transport. Well, we know that dairy plays a key role in feeding the world. Over 80% of the world's population, that's over 80% of the world's population, regularly consume dairy products. And none of this would be possible if it wasn't for transport of milk from farm to factory. And it was probably a little bit reduced last year, but almost 900 million tons of milk are produced each year. That means almost 900 tons of milk needs to be moved from the farm to the factory. So we believe that this part of the supply chain is supporting a large dairy industry, feeding 6 billion people, and an industry that's worth approximately 750 billion worldwide in terms of the direct and indirect jobs coming from it. So that's why we feel this is a very important area. But why is milk transport important for you guys, or for dairy processors or cooperatives or even haulers? Well, the obvious first reason is that milk is the primary raw ingredient for dairy production. Without it, as we said, none of the dairy products that we all enjoy would be possible. So very obvious reason to begin with. But also the collection of milk at the farm really forms the basis of the relationship between the farmer and the processor, or the farmer and the co-op, or even the farmer and the milk hauler. So this touch point is a key part of the relationship. And as we know, the dairy industry is all about relationships. And what we've also found is that in many cases, the teams who are managing this critical part of the dairy supply chain are under pressure. They can sometimes be under-resourced, their processes are suboptimal, and in many cases they're underfunded, really because their primary focus is to make sure that their farmers, again, in the case of a co-op, it's farmer owners, to make sure that they are happy and to make sure that the golden rule is always followed, i.e. all milk must be collected and taken to the factory in time. So hopefully some of these reasons resonate with the people that we have on the call. So now we're going to go through some of the challenges that we have seen on the market. Colm's going to go into them in more detail, and they touch around areas, hopefully, again, that will be things that you guys are thinking about now or in the coming months and years. We're going to go through regulations. Obviously, rising transport costs, there's nobody escaping from that. Seasonality and forecasting is an interesting one. especially now, for those of us in Ireland, given the recent weather patterns, resource shortages around drivers and admin, and all of that leads into the fact that to be able to handle all of these challenges in the context of dairy is very difficult without a solution that's tailored for the dairy industry. So Colm, as I ask you to take it from here and give the audience a bit more detail around these areas, I'd maybe ask, given that we are speaking with customers in multiple geographies across the globe, these challenges that you've selected, are they more prevalent in one geography than the other, or do you see them important in all geographies?
Absolutely. Thanks, Gary, and thanks everyone for joining. Absolutely, we see these. These are the reason we picked these, and we went through notes of client meetings, researching what the industry is saying, and these are across every geography. There's no geographic region that escapes these. So it might be more relevant for certain countries, like seasonality is quite high in Ireland. It might be less so in other countries, but there'll still be peaks and troughs. Peaks and troughs with seasonality. It might not be as extreme or as high, but it still exists. And forecasting. So there are areas of these where it'd be stronger. Certainly regulation, everything like that is very strong across the globe. But we picked these because they are what we've seen. We're talking to companies in North America, South America, Europe, across all countries in Europe. So we're talking on a global level, and these are the ones that have come up to be the biggest challenges at the moment for transport within dairy. So
absolutely, I agree.
The rising transport costs, I put this up front because obviously it is the biggest area of concern, is how do we manage costs. Fuel prices remain high and they remain in an unstable condition. That's not going to change. There's Ireland in the next few months is going to go through at least 2 price increases for fuel, and that's probably reflective across the globe as well, as things change and as we're in an unstable environment when it comes to when it comes to combustion fuel and what's going to happen around that. It is a big concern, and it's not something that's going to stabilize anytime soon either. And how can we manage that? Modern transportation fleets has never been more difficult and more research required. It's a minefield at the moment. Do you go bio? Do you go electric? Do you stay combustion but do something else with combustion and modernize in some other way? What do you do? And there's a case against, there's a fight against, do you go bio or do you go electric? But then electric, everybody's worried about, what is the mining impact on the environment? Fair enough, we're not doing the carbon, but what about the mining problems that it causes from environment impact if you go electric? And there's all these things that are impacting. Then what about the supply electricity, steady supply electricity? Thankfully, not such an important issue here, but there are areas and there's geographies that do have to worry about that. Wages are increasing all the time, and that's an added cost. Salaries for drivers, planning teams are very highly skilled, and these are areas that are increasing as well regularly on a quarterly basis. Fleet management and maintenance has never been more costly. As vehicles become more and more specialized, you need more specialist mechanics to manage them and to monitor them, and that is an increasing cost. The increased requirement for more sensors and real-time data at a tanker level is obviously something that is hugely important, but also does also add another cost onto transportation. And then foreign trade is more difficult post-Brexit. We've seen that this has been extremely disruptive, from both getting the right ingredients in. So if you need to add on ingredients onto your raw milk, other product, that can be more difficult to source, higher prices for it to source, and longer leading times. You have to buy more strategically and more in advance as well. You don't have the flexibility you would have had before to drop ship almost. Now you have to plan longer in advance and things like that. So they're all adding on to the cost. We looked at an example of the unpredictability. We take just fuel for the moment. If we look at just since January 2020, and we look at this chart, like nobody can predict what is happening, what would have happened in the last 2-3 years with regard to fuel prices. Thankfully, we're coming down a little bit again, but we don't know where that's going to go in the next few months. And what we're saying is, you're saying there's a webinar about how do we work, to become more profitable. Well, one of the area is that we don't have control as much over the price of the fuel that we're buying. What we can do is we can prepare for, we can do other things like we taking miles out of the network, but reduce the amount of miles we're traveling, and add a little bit of a buffer in there so that when there is a slight price increase or that we have that buffer, or we've taken strategic decisions to put in place procedures to control what we can control, so that when the uncontrollable happens, then we have that little bit of buffer. And that's one of the things that we can do. And Gary will talk about that later on when he's going through the demonstration. But it is part of what you can do is look at the areas that are within your control and what can you do about those, so that when the unpredictable does happen, you do have that bit more control and you have that bit of a buffer there. Whereas if you are unprepared, obviously that has a much larger impact on you. Sustainability pressures is massive. Carbon footprint is obviously huge, and it's one of the biggest environmental pressures when it comes to transport. Vehicles, as we talked about, are becoming, there's better carbon scrubbers in combustion vehicles now, so that they're scrubbing out more carbon and it's becoming cleaner, the fumes, but it's still there. That carbon footprint is still there and it's still very, very high. And what can we do about that? And there is a good bit to do, but as we said, electric vehicles are the way to go because the other impact. Biofuels are quite expensive. The machinery in that, is that the way to go? What is the way to go when it comes to carbon footprint? And then there's other carbon footprints as well, from electricity and that, from storage and stuff like that of the raw material. Wastewater management, obviously, when you're doing your clean outs and everything like that, that has a cost to you guys as well. Is that how do we manage that wastewater is now contaminated with milk and stuff like that, and all that needs proper systems that to be managed and everything like that. And there's tankers that are becoming more efficient at washing out, using less chemicals and more efficient at being clean. So there is all the technology and research being done and advancements in the actual physical product to be able to help with that better as well. So upgrading tankers and that to the most efficient waste management and cleaning is one way to look at it. And then obviously other waste byproducts, your oils, your greases, all the other things in refrigerated units, the gas units from that, all that waste that has to be managed by you. It's no easy task. And for your sustainability managers, for your transport managers, managing all this is a burden. It's very, very difficult to do. And it's a hard job. We appreciate the work that you guys are doing in this, but is there an easier way to do it? And that's what we're going to talk about later on, is how can we help you to do this? Because it is a burden, it is something that has come on your shoulders and it's getting heavier on your shoulders.
Yeah, absolutely. And maybe just to add, Colin, of course, Scope 3 emissions is almost a buzzword now. But when you look at that in the context of milk transport, where in many or maybe the majority of cases third-party hauliers are used, then Scope 3 emissions becomes very important, because Scope 3 emissions are defined as activities from resources or assets that are not owned or controlled by the organization, and in that scenario, third-party hauliers fit into that. So the challenge is even more complicated there. It's one thing having to track and report on emissions from your own internal activities, but the challenge is now there to track and report on activities on your contractors, and in this case on your haulers.
Yeah, absolutely, Gary. That's a good point. Thanks for bringing that up. Seasonality and forecasting, we've been asked about this so many times, and we've consulted with companies so many times around forecasting and seasonality. The increase in unpredictable weather patterns is one of the biggest things. We've got a 1 degree increase just off the coast of Ireland here in the water temperatures around the Atlantic, and that is causing unpredictable weather patterns at the moment. We're hoping it's just an anomaly, but it is something that's happening more and more. We had a storm over in the southwest of Ireland only 2 years ago that knocked out the electricity in half the farms and everything like that, and their ability then to be able to pump their ability to be able to keep the product at a controlled temperature was very, very difficult, and the processors had to jump in and provide support. So this is becoming much more of an issue. Is this unpredictable weather patterns, colder winters, warmer summers? So that is something that I know you all, and we talk to clients regularly who now plan for winter. What if there's an outage, or what do we do? What can we as a process do to support our farmers, and what can the farmers do then to prepare for it as well? So it is something that is becoming more and more difficult. It's hard enough when the pattern is stable. You know your winter's going to be your standard winter, your summer's going to be your standard summer. It is still hard enough to do your forecasting on milk numbers without having these unpredicted weather fronts coming in. Yesterday, I was flying home from Manchester, and my sister was texting saying, I hope you get home. We've had a sinkhole in Kilkenny, there's a tornado over in Cork, and there's lightning and thunder over Dublin. So we hope that you get home. And that was all in one day. So it is very real. And again, it's no easy task to do the forecasting. Tracking of data is becoming more and more important, more and more required from a strategic standpoint. And there's one way that you can add in some sort of control over your seasonality and forecasting is the closer you get to live data, and we would seriously encourage this. And if you have any question around what research we've done and who we've been talking to and looking at this, please do contact myself or Gary to have a discussion with you on it. Tracking of data at a farm level, at a vehicle level, is hugely important. And the closer you can get to that live data, the more you can do when it comes to forecasting, and the more up to date you can get, and the better planning you can do for your network, for your milk collection network as well, from overfill to making sure you're optimized in the best possible way. Getting closer to that data is a great way to add some predictability into this unpredictable weather that we're seeing and coming down the line is hitting us year on year. Resource shortages. Myself and Gary were on a call, I suppose about 18 months ago, maybe a bit less, with a company in the UK, and we were kind of a bit taken back when we were told that they wanted to upgrade and they had the ambition to upgrade, but they were waiting 18 months for new vehicles. And in some cases, it could be even longer. That was only for a certain amount of vehicles that they were able to get, and it was going to be even longer if they wanted to get more fleet in. So the longer wait times, the supply chain when it comes to getting new vehicles, the manufacturer is now extremely long, and it's holding back. Companies are holding back from doing it now because of these long wait times. It's a very long investment to make for a return that's not going to happen for nearly 2 years' time. But it is something that's impacting is the ability to be able to upgrade the fleet. And again, it's another barrier to progressing and becoming more sustainable. Skill shortages in planning logistics. We work with you guys. A lot of you guys are planners on the call, or you work with planners, or your hauliers who are planners, or your processors, whoever you are. If you're into planning, we appreciate all the time your skills, your ability to be able to respond quickly to events, your ability to meet demand at the factory level. It is magic what you guys do, and sometimes you're doing it on Excel sheets, sometimes you're doing it on a system that's not purposely built, but you're getting part of your job done on that system, and then having to take it out and do some magic yourselves. And you guys are becoming very, very short in very what you call it, in high demand. So you guys are, and that's going to become critical in the future, as well as the availability of these high skilled individuals. Driver
Just
shortages. Yeah.
Sorry, Colin, just on that, I think that's a good point. I mean, we see it again and again and again that two things. So transport managers and planners, they just don't have the time to spend hours per day or per week manually going through routes or changes to routes or changes to factory requirements and trying to update them. They just simply don't have the time, because they have so many other responsibilities, but also, like you say, that's trying to in the current job market, it's difficult in all roles, but our customers are telling us to be able to recruit planners and administration in the logistics area is very difficult. So again, to your point, that is a recurring theme in every country, in every market. There's there's no country that's able to avoid that challenge.
No, no. And obviously, if someone retires and brings that skill set with them, then it leaves a huge big hole that can take a pretty long time to fill. Then, if someone does leave,
right.
Driver shortages then is a big issue, and it's such a big issue that's come down the line that just by 3 years' time, by 2026, 30% of drivers will retire by 2026. But however, for every, let's say, that only leaves 4 to 7 times less replacement drivers available. So in other words, for every 10 drivers that are going to be leaving between now and 26, there's only between 4 to 5 coming back up to replace them. And another shocking figure is that only 3% of drivers are female. And that's probably even less in the dairy transport industry. So one way is to encourage females to enter into the role, but also then to look at career plans and get back to trucking being a viable, enjoyable, steady career job, that it is a skill set that's going to be needed. We're never not going to need drivers and skilled drivers, but it is something that's hurtling down the line at us by 2026. And again, how can we address that? And there's certain things we can do from a recruitment point of view, absolutely, and be mindful that in 3 years' time you might have these issues. And then between now and then, what can you do? Reduce the amount of resources that you're using is one way. So you might possibly need less drivers or need less vehicles, or you can do more trips in a shorter period of time, and that by optimizing. So it is something that is very, very quickly coming down the line at us, is this lack of availability of drivers. Then complexities in milk transport. You guys know more than anybody. I don't have to preach to the converted. You guys know that you're not like any other logistics. You've got a perishable product in the back of a truck. You have to get with it to the factory within a certain amount of time to ensure the quality. When you're lifting it, you're checking the quality of the milk. You're checking the temperatures. When you deliver it, you're reporting on the data that you've collected while you're transporting it. And then you just fill the tanker from empty to full coming back in, which is unique. It's reverse logistics basically. Usually you're dropping off and you're come back empty. And you know, the drivers and everything like that. It's a talent that the relationships that they have with their farmers is that they know that in advance if they're going to be 2,000 liters more, and will that impact in the follow-on lift that they're making, etc. So it is very, very different to other types of data. It is not something that one size fits all, where a generic solution can come in and help. Destination changes. You know, a factory suddenly has an issue. There's a line down. Now you need to divert 100,000 liters of milk somewhere, and how do you manage that change very, very quickly? Or there's a problem somewhere and you've got less milk in the network. How do you manage that? And that's unique to milk as well. That's unique to your type of business. So it's important to work with systems, and when you're researching solutions to what we're talking about here, and we'll show you some answers in a minute, it's important to make sure that it is dairy specific, that it knows what the problems that you have at a farm level, the problems you have at vehicle level, and the problems that you have at a factory level. It is very important that the system you choose know that, and Gary will talk a bit about that in a minute. So it's not a one size fits all. You do work within a very unique world. And we very much appreciate that, the complexity that brings. Regulations. I see we have some of the Enterprise Ireland team join us today as well. So and they ran a fantastic event just last week, talking about the regulation that's coming down the line at a fast pace, but with enough time to do something about it. If you're working in the business, you're obviously compliant with the laws and regulations that are in there already. So you're working and you're fine. But there are new regulations coming down the line to you. And there is time to get in front of that. You can actually go along and now look for the support. There is third parties out there that can provide support for you when it comes to regulation. You know, just talk about, you know, the scare tactics out there, talking about culling national herds and stuff like that. But there's a lot more that can be done before we get to that point. So that's not something that's coming down the line immediately. There's a lot that the industry can do, and we got to take responsibility for meeting the regulations that are on it, so that we can prevent certain things that we're scared about from happening. We can prevent it from happening. There is time, these legislations that have been drawn up are in draft mode, they're in consultation mode, they're being rolled out and tested. So we can actually work on it, we can actually move, but we need to get the right people in place in our organizations that can follow these regulations and be ready for it. And this will bring opportunity for you. If you're compliant and ready, it means that you'll be able to access the markets you want to access. You'll be able to continue to do what you want to do within the markets. So we'll bring great opportunity to be compliant. So it is something very, very worthwhile looking at. And there is time. That is good news. There is time to be able to get ready for when these regulations become law or become mandatory. You will actually be able to take action. Then how are companies meeting these challenges? Well, the biggest thing obviously is that we said is the data, getting the data. Data at the back of trucks and getting that to be able to lift the data immediately gives you strategic advantage. You know exactly what's happened today, and then when it comes to planning for tomorrow, you know exactly what happened yesterday live, and that'll give you much more strategic data to be able to make decisions and to be able to respond quickly. You have then your types of vehicles. So you have your biofuel and your electric. They're ways of doing it, but they're the more costly ways. Obviously, that is quite a big expense. So what can we do then to, in the meantime, before we go down the road of these massive expensive replacing the fleet? Well, you got data, as we said, having the physical systems, you know, your sensors and everything like that, and then being able to report on it, having a good quality reporting system to be able to put all the information together and to be able to analyze it in order to make decisions. And once you can do that, you can make critical decisions. Like, by the way, OptaHaul, for example, which you see from Gary, you know, how can we take miles out of the network, and how can we plan more efficiently, plan for unplanned events, so we can run scenarios where we can have a scenario ready. Should this happen, what would that look like? What would the cost be? So you can pre-plan. But then there's also managed service. We do provide a managed service if you want, but there's other companies from a regulatory point of view that provide managed services. If you have a look around, and we're happy to introduce you to a few. We do have a few that we can talk about when it comes to the regulatory point of view, when it comes to sensors, real-time data, we can work with you on those. So there is managed service out there that if you have a skill gap within your organization for a particular area, there are managed services out there. Again, we invite you to give us a call if you do want to talk to any of them. So back office digitization, every vehicle will be running more efficiently. So if you use a back office system like OptaHaul, what it does is, you know, if you upgrade one vehicle to electric, that will only be one electric vehicle. Where if you use a system like ours, it means that every single vehicle will be running less miles. Every single vehicle will be more efficient, will be fuller, will be doing better routes. You'll be utilizing your driver more. So it does sort of like supercharge your entire fleet, maximize the resources, as we said, provides more predictability in your collection network because you'll be able to change things more, you'll be able to respond quicker. So production will love that. They'll have more predictability and a more balanced milk flow as well. Quick response to unpredictable situations as well. Because I said you can pre-plan a scenario, or you'd be able to push a button and run a different scenario if you need to. You plan ahead for various scenarios, the same thing, but support you on regulatory requirements. Just conscious time. I'm going to, I know a lot of people have said, well, we get to see the solution, and you will. So I'm going to hand it over to Gary to let you see a little bit how the solution can support you in adding in these efficiencies into your back office, into your planning. So Gary, over to you then.
Thank you very much, Colm. While I transition here, I'll just ask somebody to confirm that they can see my screen.
We can see your screen, Gary. We can see your OptaHaul map. Yep.
Okay, cool. Okay, so leading on from what Colm said, so we've presented some challenges, and we've presented some ways to meet those challenges. Now, some of them are short-term, medium-term, and long-term. Some of them are achievable right now, and some of them aren't. But what is achievable right now is to start the process of digitization. And the focus of this webinar is simplifying milk transport, and that'll be the focus of the demo. So to set the scene, this is the OptaHaul platform. What the system does is it automatically calculates the most cost-efficient route plan for collecting milk from any number of farms to go to any number of factories. In this case, we have 3 factories, as I hope you can see on the left, and we have just over 90 suppliers for the purposes of the demo. And the system comes up with the most cost-effective route plan. And what is a plan in this scenario? Well, it's a 2-day plan here because it covers daily collections and every other day collections. And what it tracks is obviously the total distance. It tracks the total costs and the resources needed to do the collection, the type of milk, and it can be multiple different milk types. But importantly, we're talking about simplifying for a sustainable and profitable future. We track the cost per litre, and that's what all of you are tracking in terms of your overall transport operations. Now, 2.91 cent per litre. If any of you are running at that cost per litre, then you definitely need to talk to OptaHaul. But obviously, that's a little elevated as a demo system. But the point being that a system like this allows you to run multiple scenarios, run multiple plans, and use modern software to help you reduce that cent per litre costs. So that's the key KPI you're tracking here on these plans is how can I reduce that cent per litre cost, even our cent per pound cost or cent per hundredweight cost, even by 0.5 or 0.05 of a cent, and that all adds up when we're talking about billions of litres or billions of pounds of milk. So that is the culmination of a completed route plan, and you can see here we have a variety of routes in this completed plan, and a route or a trip or a tour is, as you know, is starting at a factory or a depot, collecting from multiple farms and going back to a factory to offload. The percentages here, by the way, are how full the tanker is as it gets back to the factory, and obviously you're looking for 95, well, or 100% depending on what type of buffer you need. But the point here is that to simplify the process is to use something that you don't need to spend months or even years configuring to suit the milk collection process. So the first step in simplification is to have a centralized place for your data. And here we have data on the 3 pillars of the three pillars of data that you need to track. So the factories or the plants where the milk is going, and the producers, the farmer suppliers who are providing the milk, and obviously the vehicles, whether they're your own or they're your third-party hauliers that are doing the collection. Okay, you can see here how simple this is, and it is simple because the system knows what data should be collected for milk collection. So we have the standard coordinate data that you would expect in any route optimization solution, but now it's asking us to define how much milk needs to go to each factory. For any of you who've tried to implement a solution for milk collection based on a generic solution, it was most likely asking you to complete or to input orders, because the majority of optimization solutions work on an order delivery basis. You input orders in from your shop the night before, and you deliver them the next day. And that doesn't work for milk collection because it's not based on individual orders, it's based on satisfying production requirements. So here, very simply, to kick off a plan, we need to define how much milk needs to go to each factory. We're not saying which farm needs to go to which factory. The system will work that out in the most optimal way. We are just saying that we need a certain requirement, in this case 100,000 litres for this factory on day 1 and on day 2. So again, all data in one place on your suppliers. Standard data, we need to know what milk we're collecting. We could be working with producers, organic, conventional, grass-fed, non-GMO, whatever it might be. Of course, we need to know how much milk we're collecting, and that can be taken from real-time data from yesterday, from the back of the truck, from your producer payroll system, or it could be manually uploaded in an Excel sheet, wherever that data sits within your organization. We need to know, are we collecting from this farm daily or every other day? Or maybe we want the system to tell us what is the best way to do that. We certainly need to know that the truck that we're sending to the farm is able to access the farm. So farm access restrictions are particularly important and annoying for haulers if there are issues there. We definitely need to know about the optimal collection windows. So how many farmers are annoyed or put out when a tanker arrives at an unsuitable time during cleaning times or milking time or whatever it might be. So we can get as granular as we need here. In this case, the only collection windows, the only time a truck should arrive at this farm is between 8 and 10 in the morning, 4 and 6 in the evening, and between 12 and 2 in the next morning. Let's maybe remove that one as our haulers aren't working overnight. Then we want to improve our relationship with the farmers, so we can send them a text or an email notification to tell them when the truck will be arriving on the farm. But we also want to improve our relationship with our own drivers and our own haulers, so we can leave particular notes in the route plan that we share with them that help. Now, obviously, if it's a hauler or driver that's been doing this for 20 years, they won't need it. But the Collins point earlier on, with the churn in the amount of drivers, with 30% leaving in the next, I think it was 3 years, and then this is going to become even more prevalent. So when you're bringing on new drivers, they have enough to learn without learning all of the nuances in each of maybe 100 or 200 different farms. Okay, so again, the simplicity, the reason why I can do this in a couple of minutes is because I don't need to tell the system what a farm is or what data we need from a farm to do milk collection. It already knows it. Again, the tanker that we're sending there, we know the tankers have different capacities, so we need to define that. We know that tankers may start at the factory if it's an owned fleet, but more likely they will start at a different location, whether that's a depot or maybe the driver's home itself, whatever it might be, depending on the size of the hauler. But that all adds miles to the overall plan calculation, so it needs to be accommodated. And then we track the cost of each vehicle, so we can work out the overall cost, and we can implement the regularity things that Colin was talking about. And in this case, it's the maximum driving time. So, and not implemented in all countries, but most likely will be implemented in all countries, which means that in our case here, it means that we won't create a trip or a route that exceeds the maximum driving time for any one driver, which in this case is 14 hours. Okay, so very quickly, we now have all of the ingredients we need to run a plan and to ask the system to run the most cost-efficient plan. So let's do it. So I'm going to run a quick plan, but before I do, there are further constraints or parameters that we can set that will make it more accurate. So we can define how long the CIP, the tank cleaning at the factory, is going to take, and when it happens, whether it's between trips or whether it's just at the end of the day. We can define how long a typical unload takes at the factory, because obviously that affects when the truck can go out for the next trip. We can define how long the driver spends talking to the farmer at the farm and doing the pickup. And to add to that, we can define the pumping rate of the pump on the back of the truck at the farm, and we multiply that by the amount of milk that's being collected, so we can understand the overall time of a pickup, and that's going to be different at each farm. And then we apply some penalties, because we don't want a truck waiting outside a farm for 2 hours, even if it is the shortest distance. So we need to ensure that we're looking at this from all angles and working out the lowest cost plan, not necessarily the shortest distance plan. But having done all that, in the space of what I hope was only 5 minutes, we are able to run a plan. So now the system is taking away hopefully many hours of manual planning that a lot of milk transport people are doing, and it is doing the calculations for you. The algorithm behind it has been designed specifically for milk collection, and it is running through multiple, sometimes hundreds of thousands of scenarios to work out the best result. Now, in this case, we have a new plan. We haven't really made a huge amount of changes to the plan, so we should get something similar. So we have created a new plan. But if you look here one of the strengths of having a route optimization solution is that you can run multiple plans. So here, previously I run a plan for winter, an off-peak plan, which has less milk that we're collecting. So I already know what that's going to cost us and how many trucks we're going to need in winter. We have a weekly plan, which we're going to implement across the week in a moment. I've run some scenarios on optimized plan to try and to improve the result. And we can also compare at the bottom here, we can compare our optimized plan against actual routes taken. So we can import historical data to say, here's what we did on Thursday and Friday last week over 2 days, and here's what we could do. So within a few minutes, we can run multiple different types of plans. Okay.
Gary, just before you move on, we have a quick question there asking, does the optimizer take into consideration vehicle specifics on the roads, like weight restrictions, height restrictions, small roads?
Good question. So yes, absolutely. So as with all route optimization platforms, we use an industry standard mapping service. We use here, or we can use multiple, but we use here, and that provides live information on weight restrictions, on new roads, on closed roads, etc., etc. So any route plan that we create will adhere to the weight restrictions that exist.
Cool. Thank you.
Thanks, Colin. So when we create the plan, then we want to share it. Sharing the plan is relatively simple. We can share it via text, email, via a link. And this is now what a shared plan might look like. And if a driver or haulier is clicking into it, they can see their route. They've got 3 stops here, and they can find out more information about the route, and you can see there the note that we added in to try and help this particular driver. So very quickly, we've created a pickup plan. We've run some scenarios, and we have shared it. Now, we know that milk pickup plans may not change, or certainly won't change every day. They may change every week, or they may change every month. But in terms of farm assembly, we know that you certainly don't want to be changing those every day, because you don't want to, going back to the importance of the relationship between the farm and the processor. So what we can do is we can run a particular plan and set it to repeat over the week, because we know it's going to be day 1, day 2, day 1, day 2 over the course of the week, and that's what we're doing here. So it's the same plan, but it's repeating because we don't want to change anything. But what does change is the destination of the full loads. So when the full loads are assembled, what happens, and this should resonate with anyone involved in milk planning, what happens is that calls happen every day to either change the destination of loads that day or the following day. So you may create a weekly plan like we have here, but we all know that things change on those weekly plans. So let me just implement our weekly plan here. If we can do that. So again, so this is repeating the day 1, day 2 across one weekly plan. And now, instead of changing the order of the milk pickups, I'm changing the destination of the factories. Okay, so we are now looking at our milk collection process from a load perspective, not from a farm perspective. So these are all full loads going to different factories on the 28th of June, 29th of June, 30th of June, and the 1st of July. But we want to know, what is the cost effect of making a change? So if I'm changing this factory from factory A to factory B, so this is one load on the 28th of June, well, we have the same unit cost that we spoke about earlier on, and that is increasing the unit cost here by 0.11 cent per litre, and that's increasing the overall plan. So I don't really want to do that. Maybe I can find somewhere else where it will be a little bit better. Let's see. Yes. Okay. So here I'm changing from factory A to factory C, and that's a shorter distance, and I can immediately see the cost, and that we're reducing the unit cost for that day to 0.17. So the key point here is that we, in a very simple way, we cover the more strategic optimization, which is optimizing the farm pickup, but then we help daily planners to respond to these daily changes to factory destinations. And to finish, you know, in terms of working towards increasing profits and reducing GHG emissions, the key to having a system like this is to be able to compare one plan against the other. So you can see here, as I mentioned earlier on, we can compare the actual routes taken on a week. We can compare it against some optimizations that we've run. We can say that we're getting better. We can compare it against the weekly plan that we've implemented across the week. Okay, we're getting even better, and so on and so on. And it's really having that data in a simplified way, and being able to compare optimized results, implement optimized results, and compare all of that to exactly what happened. That is the key to decreasing costs, increasing margins, and taking miles off the road. So with that, Colm, I will stop the demo. We're probably a little bit pushed for time, and that's on me.
I'm going to bring you into a quick question. Does the system understand the different milking schedules? I know you're going to say yes, but I'll hand it over to you, i.e. 1,600 hours. But does the system understand different milking schedules?
Milking schedules in what scenario? In what context? Do we know? Would anyone like to come off mute?
I don't know if they can, but type in the question. I presume milking schedules at farm. They've got different milking schedules at farm.
At the farm level.
At the farm level, different milking schedules. I'm presuming that, Gary. I don't have more context, but I'm presuming that.
Yeah. Yes. So absolutely. As I showed, so each farm has different times where they want their milk collected. So if we've got, which we have in some cases, thousands of farms in the system, then they'll all have different collection windows, and our system will adhere to that.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. But if you do want to contact us to find out more, you can do. You're more welcome to contact us, and we can give you more information about that.
Okay, so Colm, that's the demo finished. I don't know, do you want to wrap it up then?
Yeah, folks, thanks a million for spending time with us. We're a few minutes over, but just to go back over the benefits of what we showed today. Simplify, obviously, the industry-specific, modern, and easy to use. The system that's what we're promoting, is that it's to simplify the process. Increased margins obviously speaks for itself and how the system can do that. Demand-based planning, obviously, handle any challenges efficiently. Do more with less, basically, is what we're hoping to achieve. Not what we're hoping to, is what we do achieve through the system. And then obviously, like what Gary talked about, the reporting with reducing miles and all those capabilities to address sustainability issues. Anything else you want to add on that, Gary?
No, I think that covers it. That was the goal of the webinar, to share with people on the call that the challenges that they're experiencing is, from what we see, is being experienced by many other customers, and to show one way where they can, in a simple way, they can move forward and start to meet some of these challenges head on.
Yeah, absolutely. So to recap, we have looked at the importance of milk transportation, dairy transport challenges, example of those challenges and what is available to meet those challenges, and demonstration. Folks, we really appreciate your time in spend the last 45 minutes, almost 50 minutes with us today. We will be putting it up onto our social media platforms that you look back again, if you like to looking at us that much. But we are available to talk and to chat on anything you've seen. I want to give a special thanks to Tiffany in the background there, who did a massive amount of work in getting all you guys today there. We haven't had any drop-offs, which is who the people that have been there from start have been there from the beginning. So I take it that there was something of interest and value to everybody. We appreciate that you would have known a lot of this stuff already, and then hopefully we've given you some food for thought as well. But thank you all for your time. We really appreciate it. Thanks to Gary for supporting and for helping with this, taking time out of his time over in America. Really appreciate it, and to Tiffany as well in the background. Anything from you, Gary? And I'll say goodbye and I'll let you have the last word. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, no, thanks everybody, and thanks to our marketing manager, Tiffany. I don't know if you want to move it on to the next slide. Should anyone want to see a more detailed demo, please feel free to give us an email or click on optahall.com/demo. But with that, Thank you, everybody. Have a nice day, evening, afternoon, and we hope to see you soon on future OptaHaul webinars. Thank you.
Cheers. Thanks, everyone.